That's such a wonderful segue into the book. So let's get into it. The full title of the book is Unbreakable Alliances, a spy recruiter's authoritative guide to cultivating powerful and lasting connections. As you mentioned, Robin, this is not your first book. This is your fourth book. How was writing the book in comparison to the previous three? Was it a simple labor of love, or was there a reason, purpose behind it?
All of those things. It's a great question too. My fourth one, my first one I self-published. Actually, we're republishing my first one. It'll be out next year under this publisher. I love this new publisher of mine. They're fantastic. So we're republishing my first one next year under their brand. And the next two were I had a writer with them, Cam Stout, amazing writer, and
Mm,
then this one was all me again. And it's an evolution. So the first one was rapport, then trust, and assessing others. And this one is about putting all those things together and creating these great unbreakable alliances and
mm,
basically healthy relationships.
yeah.
It was an evolution of me with, again, my number one job in life as a father. And my number one job as a father is every time my children, they're grown, my son's a Marine Corps pilot, jet pilot, and my daughter's a nurse. And every time they face an obstacle in life or a challenge, the first question I have is, all right, what are we going to do about it? Who do we need to talk to? What relationships do we need to have in order to move through this challenge or problem? So you get enough reps doing that. People started saying, you really need to get this content out because this is what you do. Because this is what I did for my entire life. This is what we all do. We strategize how to solve problems with people.
Yeah.
And so it was a labor of love to do. It was the, we hit those moments in life where you just feel compelled. It was
Yeah.
compulsion. I had read a tremendous amount. So what went into this, what I tried to do with this, I consume a lot of books every month. I'm an Audible freak. I'd probably do about, depends on length. I generally read lengthier books, about 4 to 6 a month.
Welcome, Team ET, to another ET Project Live. I have to say, today I'm feeling quite blessed because I have the opportunity to do two things that I enjoy immensely. The first is to catch up with an old friend, and the second is to talk about a new book that I've just had the pleasure of reading. So, perhaps first to the book. This particular book guides us through the art of cultivating powerful, lasting relationships, and it does it through the lens of unbreakable alliances, which, by the way, just happens to be the title. And to help us unravel the core messages that are woven through the book is the author and my good friend, Mr. Robin Dreeke. As you will have heard me introduce Robin, he has a really interesting background, and I personally would go as far as to saying, in terms of careers, at least in my circle, um, very unique. Uh, the background itself lays the foundation for much of what we're going to be speaking about today in relation to the book. So, Robin, it's been way too long, but finally we're back together again on this show. Welcome back.
Thanks, Wayne. It's a great pleasure to be back with you again. Like you said, there's nothing better in the world than having a great conversation and catching up with a friend. So,
Yeah.
thanks for having me back. And yeah, great conversations are the core of everything and creating those great unbreakable alliances.
There's the theme of the book in one sentence.
There
So,
you go.
18 months. I was just doing the maths. 18 months, May 2023, that we were together on this show. And I'm wondering, apart from the book, what have you been doing in that time?
Same, so when you're living your life's purpose, it's really just learning. And actually it's so funny because it's part of the book. When you live trying to live mastery, as I call it, it
Yep.
means you fall in love with the process. I don't really have someone asked me this the other day, so what's new for you in this year? As I just turned 56, and they said, so what big goals you have? I go, my only goal is to make it to 100. And so my magic number is 2068 because that's the year I hit 100. And other than that, it's really just embracing every day and
Mm,
making every day what I call a great rep, a great repetition. And a great repetition is a day you remember. The ways our brain work are really simple. We
yep.
don't remember average things. We remember things that are really, really awesome that stand out, or we remember really, really challenging days. And so I always tell everyone, go out and make a day you're going to remember. So I really embrace things that are going to make a great rep.
Yeah, very good. Good or bad, I guess, right? So we
Yeah,
don't
there is no
know
bad.
what
There
we're
just
doing.
is.
Yeah.
The universe is not out to get you. It's just being what it is.
I mentioned during that short intro that by most people's standards, you have a somewhat of an extraordinary career. And I wonder if you'd mind filling in the blanks for our listeners. What exactly have you been doing throughout your career and why is it so extraordinary for most of us?
Sure. The best way I like to frame it is so my primary job that I focus 100% of my effort on, that I love more than anything, is father. The everything, and now everything I'm going to tell you that I did professionally gave me the skill set to even be a better father every single day, and I'm still practicing.
I can imagine.
And that is, so I went to the United States Naval Academy. I graduated from the Naval Academy, became a Marine Corps officer. I spent 5 years on active duty with the Marine Corps at Cherry Point, North Carolina, Parris Island, South Carolina. I was basically in charge of boot camp for a while with drill instructors. From there, I came in the FBI. I came in the FBI in 1997 as a special agent, got assigned to the New York field office in Manhattan, New York, where I was assigned to actually recruit spies. My job was working counterintelligence for all my career. And while I was in charge of recruiting spies in New York, Russian military intelligence officers specifically, during that time, I got on a behavioral program because every program has a behavior aspect to it, and so
Right.
does counterintelligence. So I became a team member of the counterintelligence behavioral analysis program. From New York, I went to Norfolk, Virginia, did the same thing down there. From there, I went to FBI headquarters. I took over a national program for the FBI for counterintelligence. Then I got asked to go to Quantico, Virginia, where the FBI Academy is at. I was an instructor there for our advanced courses for recruitment operations, double agent operations, interviewing, interrogation stuff. And then I took over our team, the behavioral analysis team, for a number of years. And so I consulted on cases all over the country on all the, as I call it, the hooky spooky spy stuff. And then my last couple of years, I was doing it back on the street again by choice. And then I retired in 2018. I've written 4 books. This is my fourth, and I just accumulate knowledge by a lot of humbling moments. And my next job is to pass that knowledge on, so no one else has to have as many humbling moments.
I'm curious, Tom Cruise walking down the aisle at FBI headquarters, what's the vibe as you turn up to work? You're in the spy business. It just sounds so mystical.
Yeah, it's a great question. I haven't been asked that question before, and every time we get asked a new question as a behaviorist, you just love it. The vibe is an interesting vibe. I'm gonna differentiate. I'm gonna start with the first vibe I had in New York, because New York is where it was really, really high intensity, great operations. The vibe was intense. It was, I mean, it was really, I'm with you. It was really cool stuff we were doing. And it's a lot slower paced than the movies make it out to be. I mean, recruitment operations take years. I mean, there was one recruitment operation I worked for 15, 20 years of my life
Wow.
because they're that slow and develop, because these are trusted relationships you're
Yeah.
developing with people that you're hoping are going to betray their country and cooperate with yours. But we did the whole dead drops, fake rocks with double agents, meeting with sources that were in touch with our GRU officers, our military intelligence officers that were spies. We're pitching them, we're trying to recruit them, we're interdicting them, we're kicking them out of the country. We're operating ones that had defected and were working for us. So the vibe every day was one of, I likened it to buying a lotto ticket, like taking a chance, because to get our job every day was to buy a lotto ticket, because it's a chance, that someone's actually going to say yes. It's very rare, but when it is, the world's align, and we protect, the national security of the United States and all our allied partners, like everyone, pretty much. And so it was a high intensity, potentially high reward. So, and luckily though, we had amazing people on my squad that were there for 20, 25 years. And the thing that was really fantastic when I came in most organizations, and including the FBI in different areas and different departments, when you have 20 or 25 years in, that's when the older guys are kind of sitting back and relaxing and let the young guys get it. No. When I
Mm.
got to my squad, you had to keep up with them.
Ah,
They set the tempo, they set the pace, and they were doing the coolest high speed operations. And if you were humble enough, had enough humility and energy, and were willing to put in the time, they might bring you along, and that
right.
might give a little nibble here and there. So It was great. My first bunch of years in New York, I probably lived about 4 or 5 lives in the course of about 10 years in New York.
In those that group of people you were just talking about, the 20, 25-year-old years of service, how many of those became the mentors that you speak about in the book?
The one main one is in the book. His name is Jesse Thorne. In the back of the book and in the acknowledgments, I name by name. His name is John. And my other ones are Joe Navarro, the world-renowned nonverbal expert on what everybody is saying in multiple other books. He's a very good friend of mine. He's the first trainee I met on my behavior team in 2002 when I met him. Jack Schaefer's another one. He wrote a great book called The Like Switch, and what's his latest one is sitting right there, The Truth Detector on Elicitation. And so they were in other field offices, but they were my mentors and guide on the behavioral team. But John was my teacher, mentor, and guide on my squad in New York. An amazingly successful recruiter of spies, and he set this model that became the framework for everything I did in the aha moments in my life. Really, I mean, I had a lot before that point because I came in, I was about 28, 29 years old. And I had a lot of experience in the Marine Corps and humbling moments there. But his desk at work had nothing on it. You
Right.
did, I mean, when you were walking to our squad area, and we're at the 25th floor in the big, 26 Federal Plaza in Lower Manhattan, only 5 blocks from the World Trade Center, you would look at our squad area. His desk looked like it was a vacant desk, looked like no one even sat there. He didn't have a nameplate. And only after 9/11, we lived kind of close to each other. We commuted in down to on Ground Zero together. We became closer, and I went to his house with my kids, and his kids got together for pizza one night. And my son's down in the basement playing with his kids, and they're playing floor hockey, and they're playing floor hockey with this glass puck, looked like a round hockey puck. And my son says, "Dad, hey, this glass puck slides really good on the floor, much better than this metal puck." And I said, "Let me see that glass puck." And I picked it up and said the FBI Director's Award for it for the number one counterintelligence investigation in the entire FBI with John's name. Like, holy cow. Where the hell did you get this, Kevin? He points a dirty old shoebox in the corner. I go to dirty old shoebox. I pick out another glass puck with another year on it. And the metal puck said CIA Director's Award on it. John's desk at work had nothing. No accolade, no look at me's. His walls at home had nothing. His wife decorated the house. His entire ego was in the shoebox in the corner. Meanwhile, in the 22 years John had been in the FBI, he always gets so angry at me. I saw him for lunch not too long ago, and every time I say this, he gets so angry at me because I said, "You recruited 14 intelligence officers." He goes, "No, no, no, no. It was a team." I said, "All right, you were the single point of success for a team that did that." So I mean, think about that. This is like hitting lotto 14 times in your career.
Wow.
He was profound because he knew how to make it about everyone else but himself. He knew how to do the most important thing if you're going to recruit a spy or sell something in business or be a great leader. He knew how to identify the challenges, priorities, and friction points in people's lives, be a resource for them overcoming those things, and inspire people to trust him with great
Hmm.
open, honest communication, transparency, and vulnerability. It's literally that simple.
That's such a wonderful segue into the book. So let's get into it. The full title of the book is Unbreakable Alliances: A Spy Recruiter's Authoritative Guide to Cultivating Powerful and Lasting Connections. As you mentioned, Robin, this is not your first book. This is your fourth book. How was writing the book in comparison to the previous three? Was it a simple labor of love, or was there a reason, purpose behind it?
All of those things. It's a great question too. My first one I self-published. Actually, we're republishing my first one. It'll be out next year under this publisher. I love this new publisher of mine. They're fantastic. So we're republishing my first one next year under their brand. And the next two were I had a writer with them, Cam Stout, amazing writer. And
Mm,
then this one was all me again. And it's an evolution. So the first one was rapport, then trust, and assessing others. And this one is about putting all those things together and creating these great unbreakable alliances and
mm,
basically healthy relationships.
yeah.
It was an evolution of me with, again, my number one job in life as a father. And my number one job as a father is every time my children, they're grown, my son's a Marine Corps pilot, jet pilot, and my daughter's a nurse. And every time they face an obstacle in life or a challenge, the first question I have is, all right, what are we going to do about it? Who do we need to talk to? what relationships do we need to have in order to move through this challenge or problem? So you get enough reps doing that. People started saying, you really need to get this content out because this is what you do. Because this is what I did for my entire life. This is what we all do. We strategize how to solve problems with people.
Yeah.
And so it was a labor of love to do. It was the, we hit those moments in life where you just feel compelled. It was
Yeah.
compulsion. I had read a tremendous amount. So what went into this, what I tried to do with this, I consume a lot of books every month. I'm an Audible freak. I'd probably do about, depends on length. I generally read lengthier books, about 4 to 6 a month.
Yep.
And I really and I listened to some amazing authors. Matter of fact, one of the things I try to do in this book, I have a lot of citations of other great books that I drew from that I absolutely love, whether it's Ryan Holiday and all his books on Stoicism, Robert Greene's books on human behavior, what it's laws of human nature, 48 Laws of Power, and Mastery. I have Robin Sharma, he's a monk who sold his Ferrari and Who Will Cry When You Die. Then I have some biographies I mentioned in here because biographies are great tellers of human behavior as well. So a lot of great citations because a mark of a good book is when you get other books to read from it. So I wanted to make sure I did that.
Right.
And then just the content itself was driven by just the easiest revelation in the world that all problems are interpersonal problems. I got that one from the book that's called uh, uh oh, now I'm blanking on my book on that one. All problems are interpersonal problems. That is, I'll think of it in a second. But anyway, it's a profound statement that all problems are interpersonal problems, and so we can move through all problems if that.
Mm.
The gift, not get the fear. No, that's that's Gavin DeBecker. Anyway, keep going.
No, not sure at all. But I thought maybe it's a little bit more sadistic than that. I'm personally into my third book, and it doesn't take long before the fond memories start flooding back when you start sitting down and you're writing, putting pen to paper, and you suddenly remember, oh yeah, this is what it's all about. And
You
as
know,
you say, doing the reps.
it
But
is. The greatest gift I had from this one, there's a number of things. I mean, if you want, so here's the technical minutia aspect of writing this book. I finally got down a process that worked for me. So
right.
here's what I did. So I was lucky enough that I had worked with a writer on 2 other books. And what the writer did with me was it was all my content. He would interview me to answer questions that were relevant for the book. And then he
Mm.
would take that, he'd get a transcript and he'd edit the transcript. And then he'd have a draft and we went back and forth on the draft.
Right.
That's how you partner with a writer.
Yes.
And so what I did with this one was I came up with my content, table of contents of the topics I wanted to cover that I thought were very important to form unbreakable alliances. I then created about 8 to 10 questions, which became the sections of each chapter that need to be answered for that main chapter. I then interviewed myself. I recorded it. I'm recording my own answers to myself, and then transcribed it. I made a transcript of basically, I interviewed myself and then edited the transcript into the chapter. So
Wow.
so basically I partnered with myself to write the book like I did with a writing partner.
What an interesting approach.
It worked.
Incredible. I'm going through a Hay House program at the moment to pick up some finer points, and they talk about partnering with writers and some of the approaches, but you now apply that to doing it through yourself, which is a fantastic approach.
Yeah, and one last thing on that too, Wayne. You know what actually helped also was doing the podcast because I use a program in the podcast called Descript.
Right.
Descript takes audio and makes a transcription of it really, really accurately. So I took my audio of myself, I put it into Descript, made the transcript, and then I edited the transcript.
Fantastic approach. I'm going to steal that if you don't mind, Robin.
Please do. It really made it fast. I mean, it was because once I had it in my mind what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
like you're seeing now, what you do too, you can really say what we mean really easily. Sometimes it's hard to get it down on paper. So I skipped that process, putting it on paper by pen or keyboard, and I spoke it while
Yeah.
I walked because I also learned in my process, I'm what's called a kinetic learner and a kinetic thinker. I need to move while I'm thinking. And
Yeah.
so the entire book was written or narrated while I was outside walking.
I'm a very big proponent of that, particularly with coaching as well. Uh,
Yep,
I find, the whole concept of movement brings a different dimension to a conversation. So yeah,
100%.
I'm on
100%.
board
So
with
yeah,
that.
walking and talking. That's what I was doing.
There you go. The expression came from somewhere. So,
My neighborhood thinks I'm nuts.
you can I can visualize Robin walking down the street having a conversation with himself and people
100%.
driving past cramming their heads around. You mentioned the sections, and within the book you've got like 8 key chapters, I guess,
Yep.
that really set the scene and paint the picture of the storyline. Without going too deep into all of it and giving everything away, we want people to go out and buy the book. But could you give a high level overview of the book itself,
Yep.
if you don't mind?
Yeah, so we've talked about the high level, the super 50,000 foot level, which is the book is all about how to create healthy, strong alliances. And someone asked me this earlier today. So define what an alliance is according to you in the book. It's really simple. I'm all about another great author cited in here a lot is Jocko Willink and Leif Babin talking about extreme ownership and also
Yep.
the book The Dichotomy of Leadership. And everything's a dichotomy. So everything needs to be in balance. Healthy relationships are in balance.
Mm,
A strong alliance is a relationship in balance. Both people are given and taken pretty much equally as long as they feel emotionally that it's equal.
right.
And what a good, healthy relationship and alliance is people then discover your priorities, challenges, pain points, and they proactively offer you resources without an ask to overcome them. And it thereby builds up trust credits in that bank of trust.
Mm,
And then if you need to make withdrawal, well, the bank's already full. There's never even asked. I mean, so think about this. I mean, you and me are a great example. We've only talked a couple times, but we've always been there for each other.
mm,
So if there's an ask, you don't have to finish. You don't have to even finish the question. Of course, I will.
yeah.
Because that's what a good, healthy relationship is. That's what an alliance is. And so that's what the premise is at the 60,000. But here's an arc that goes throughout every chapter.
Hmm.
And that is what I call the keys of communication. Because the keys of communication are really what's going to unlock all healthy relationships. And these keys of communication are what shifts the focus from you to the other person. It packages that core content of your intent, your mission, the things you want to say, the things you want to share, or the ask you have,
Mm,
not in terms of you, but in terms of them. Because if when you make a conversation in terms of the other person, the big four are going in the brain, endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin,
yeah.
because you're basically saying, I'm present for you. I see you. This is organic, it's sincere, and I'm making it about you because I'm doing the number one thing we seek in all relationships, and that is we want to feel safe.
Mm,
And so here's what the 4 keys are, because this will then be our throughout is number one is we want to ensure we seek the thoughts and opinions of others instead of pontificating about our own.
hmm.
We want to make sure we're talking in terms of their challenges, their priorities, their pain points, their friction they're having in life
Yep.
instead of complaining about our own. We want to validate them non-judgmentally with what I call active curiosity. And active curiosity takes curiosity to the next level. Curiosity is a beautiful thing to have. It's an anchor for all of us. We're born with it. Then our parents tell us to shut up after about 6 years old, and we lose it for a while, and then we got to get it back again. And so, what active curiosity is not just being curious about what it is you want to know, being curious about what it is someone else wants to share.
Mm,
It takes you to have to listen with what I call active listening. And active listening is also simple because and there's lots of great definitions. You got to do this, you got to mirror, you got to match, you got to paraphrase and all that. I'll make it even easier. Active listening is actually listening and paying attention, free of an agenda, no agenda. So you're going to hear their words. You're going to hear the things they're putting out that they're willing to talk about. Then you employ the active curiosity, which is you explore what it is they want to share. So that's the third step. And the fourth is you empower people with choices. So if you do any one of those 4 things, you build that into your words, actions, deeds, texts, emails, the entire shift of the content goes from you to them, and it makes it all about them. And their brain says, wow, I like this person.
yeah.
And not just that. Now, when you back it up with the behaviors of trust, those are the actions of trust. These are behaviors of trust where you have open, honest communication, transparency, and vulnerability. And vulnerability is nothing more than owning what you're great at, but also owning what you're not so great at and being open and secure enough in yourself to share it. Those are what empower people to feel safe with you.
Mm. You touched on so many elements of the book there, but that arc that you talk about with the
That's the
four
art.
keys of communication is woven so beautifully throughout the book. Um, you talk about curiosity, and for me that's also one of my core pillars um, for existing is curious. I call it curious listening. Um,
Yes. Love that. I love it.
yeah. Uh, Do you have a favorite part or favorite section in the book? I mean, there's so many elements, but is there anything that really resonates strongly with you that is you?
Yeah, I thought about this today. I was thinking, I gave an answer earlier today on mastery, and I'll talk about that in a
Mm,
second because mastery is really important, and that is falling, like I said already, falling in love with the process. Since I talked about that already, I'm actually going to hit on something a little more unique that is very unique to me in this book, I think, and it's a very different way to look at things, and that is the chapter chapter 4 called Inspire
inspire, yeah.
because I take an entire chapter and I dedicate it to moving beyond. And this is at that, again, we're talking about moving into the world of an art form where interpersonal relationships need to be about other people
Yeah.
while not making yourself a carpet, but learning how to communicate in terms of others. And it's taking the idea of influence, persuasion, or even making someone do something or convincing someone of something. Remember, look, think about all those words: influence, persuade,
Mm,
convince.
mm,
Who's that about? It's about me.
yeah.
It's about what I want someone to do. It's what I want someone to think. It's about what I want them to listen to. So where's the focus? It's on me.
Yeah.
So the chapter Inspire is about others. So this
Mm,
is the way that I think all the time. Instead of thinking in terms of how can I influence someone to do this? How can I persuade them? How can I convince them? You can't, because that's about you. How do I inspire them to want to? That is something that you are here to communicate in a way that helps it unlock it from within them.
mm,
This is why, in order to unlock what's from inside someone else, you have to understand what their priorities, goals, dreams, and aspirations and friction points are.
right.
If you offer yourself as a resource for those things, now you're going to inspire them to want to be with you, to
Mm,
cooperate with you, to partner with you, become an alliance with you, because it is all about them. You've put yourself in their life if they want it. Again, it's empower them with choice as a resource for them in things that are important to them.
right.
And so that's why that chapter of Inspire, I think, is really key and critical because it's taken those concepts that people will throw on, and there's also no bad to those things. It's fine. Influence, persuade, that's fine. I mean, there's a whole book, Robert Cialdini's book on persuasion. It's a fantastic book. Um, but I think if you want to move to a down that path of mastery, you can move beyond those things, move beyond what it is you want, and think and focus on what it is they want.
Mm,
And then if you're going to have a healthy, balanced relationship and a balanced ally, they're going to become aware of your needs, wants, dreams, and aspirations as well. And they will proactively become part of your life without the ask. That is a healthy, balanced relationship.
right. Your earlier story about your colleague John and his, let's say, lack of ego or total absence of ego, to that point, right? Is it's all
Yeah.
about the other person, not about him or the individual. So
Yeah. So,
yeah.
here's a great example of it from the spy world. Again, it was a great question I answered earlier, and it was it goes along the line of so when you're recruiting a spy,
Mm,
you know, how do you do that? Like, what's the first thing you say? Do you say, "Hey, give me all your secrets"? So think about this. So here you are, you're in one of the first couple meetings with a potential confidential human source or an
mm,
intelligence officer that you're trying to bring on board, or they're at the point now where you're talking about exchanging information. If I'm trying to persuade them, if I'm trying to make it about what I want, I will ask them, "Hey, here's a list of information I think would be very valuable for us to have. May I please have that?" Who's that about?
mm,
It's about me and what I want.
yeah.
As opposed to, where do you think you'd have greater value? You could ask this instead. Sergey Ivanov, I know you're in a position of great authority, great knowledge, and you probably know our blind spots better than we do. Before I even get to my list that my analyst gave me, what kind of things do you think I need to know in order to protect my country?
Right.
That
Eternally.
inspires him. That's him. I'm seeking his thoughts and opinion. I'm empowering him with choice, and I'm validating his expertise above my own. Every time we open a conversation asking them what we thought we should know that we don't know now, as opposed to us having our list of what we thought was important, we found out profound information,
Right.
and they felt more part of the team because we
Yeah.
valued their thoughts and opinions and who they were more than we valued ourselves.
That's really interesting point, Robin. I mean, I can apply that in my own life and career as a facilitator. One of the things I found facilitating is when you go into a room and you portray yourself as the expert, people sort of, their mind shifts to what's on their phone, and here we go again. But when you open with, I'm so happy to be here in this room of collective genius, and I'm looking forward to what I'm going to learn as much as what we can share. You set the scene for an entirely different environment and event, right? And so, to your point, making it about the other person is so powerful. What intrigued me as I was going through the book, and you talk about many FBI instances, how common every day those instances are, rather
Mm.
than the Mission Impossible
Yeah.
version that I had in my mind. As a leader, the things you talk about are everyday events for leaders.
Mhm.
And you've just crystallized it so beautifully in the book to help people understand that it is that simple, but you have to be able to apply it and understand it.
Yeah, it's the reps we get on what we think is complicated today. You start walking down that path of mastery when things
Mhm.
become simpler because human interaction really is simple. Remember, we'll go back to the simple concept of all human beings are motivated to want to feel safe.
Yeah.
And so, going back to Jocko Willink and Leif Babin's book on extreme ownership, this is about owning our behavior in what we are doing to not allow people to feel safe with us.
Mm.
Probably the greatest, most challenging questions I get all the time, and this relates to everyone. I did this in the FBI nonstop, but it relates to everyone. Most of everyone's frustration at work comes from what? The boss not telling me yes. People around me not agreeing with it, people around me not supporting me, all these things that grind at us and give us the most toxic behavior or feeling emotion we can have, and that is anger and resentment. Resentment is a
Right.
horrible emotion we have because it's toxic inside our own bodies, let alone when you start propagating out. So this is what next time you start getting frustrated because you're not getting your way, no one's listening to you, your boss isn't telling you yes, which most of my time when I did my behavioral consultations for case agents in the FBI, most of my time was not on coming up with the strategies for how to recruit the spy. Most of my time was spent with how do you inspire your bosses to say yes to this operation?
Right.
And so here's what's going to inspire them to say yes. This is what's going to make everyone's life calm. This is a book about how to calm the chaos in life because when you have healthy relationships and allies, there is no chaos. And so chaos is created when people don't feel safe. And
Right.
so if you're not getting yes, if you're getting resistance for things you want to do or the way you want to do them, you know why? You didn't present it to them in a way they're comfortable and feel safe with. You are not being transparent. If they're saying no, it's because you're not being transparent enough. You're not providing enough information. You're doing it in a way that doesn't allow them to feel safe with either the operation or their career, whatever it is. You are not doing something that inspires them to feel safe. And if you start judging what they think feels safe, like, oh, well, he's just a careerist ass. Good, you're going to lose.
Right.
Again, what's the third tenet? Non-judgmental validation and curiosity.
Mm. Yeah.
That's their path. That's what they're choosing to walk. If you want to be able to move forward on yours and you need them to cooperate, you need their support, you need that alliance, that's what you have to do. You have to be a resource for them feeling safe with your choices.
Yeah. And you mention it in the book as well. There's a example you give. I'm trying to recall the exact wording and scenario, but I think it's in a Starbucks somewhere, and you're trying to recruit um, a potential agent, and you have to prepare for that conversation in many cases. So it's not just something. Eventually, I guess after the reps, it becomes fairly natural, but for many of us to get to that point where we do get the yes. We have to do the preparation up front and focus intently on making it about the other person so that they feel part of this conversation. They feel the pull towards what it is that you're hoping to achieve. And I think there's a number of stories in the book that sort of illustrate that. The coffee one stands out to me at the moment.
Yeah, the key in the preparation for everything we do is how do we prepare to be present?
Right.
I think that's really the core essence because the more present I am, the less scripting I'm doing, the more I know about them and their priorities, the
Yeah,
less I can stress. Because if we enter a conversation with someone and we're a little bit stressed about what it is I have to say, what it is I have to do, what do I have to do to look right?
right.
Where's the focus? It's on me again.
It's on me. Yeah.
Every time, as much as people would like to say we can multitask, no, we can't. As a species, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, we don't multitask. We have some things we can do by habit and repetition,
Yeah.
but when it comes to focus, we can only focus on one thing at a time. And if we try to divide that focus, you're going to have 50-50, and then it goes to crap. So it's one thing at a time. Focus on the other person. The way we do this so that you inspire them to feel safe with you
Mm.
is they have to feel comfortable with you. The way they're going to initially feel comfortable with you is if you have beautiful congruence. I
Right.
talk about this a lot. Incongruence between your words, actions, deeds, and body language.
Mm.
You want to have good, open, accommodating nonverbals, smiling, head tilts, all the ventral, they're called ventral displays that says high comfort, eyebrow elevations, flashing when you see someone, you just light up inside. And the way that this becomes congruent is your words now, if you're going to use those four keys of communication, making about the other person, and your nonverbals are also open and accommodating about them,
Yeah.
that's congruence. That inspires someone to feel safe. And the way we do that, here's our prep work. Enter the conversation, enter the dialogue free of an agenda.
Mm.
You know in the back of your mind, what when you've done the prep work, when you've done all the things, it's in the back of your mind.
Right.
Keep it back there. Because when someone says something, it'll trigger. Oh, yeah, now we can go down this path. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
It'll just be there. You've already done the pre-work. And that's where the preparation comes in is you got to know your content. You got to know what you're doing. You have to be a professional in all aspects of what you're doing because professionals prepare. But
Yes.
once the preparation's done and your mindset's set, you know the things, you push it all aside and it's time to be present. You
Mm.
engage with active listening, active curiosity,
Yeah.
and you just be present free of agenda. And naturally your body and language and everything will become very congruent.
In coaching, we refer to it as dancing in the moment. Um,
Yes. I love your phraseology you have. You have great terms. That's a great one.
but that's all about what you just said, right? It's being present. It's letting go of trying to strategize in that moment. It's just being there and it's being engaged and yeah, whatever comes up, you're ready for it.
It's
And
those words you just used. There is no trying to.
yes,
Yeah, right. Because you don't have to try anything. Because if you have to try, that's going to create stress. Stress does not look good on the person. So there's no
yeah,
try. There's just do. There's
yeah,
just be,
yeah.
as Yoda says.
You also talk about emotional intelligence within the context of different aspects. How much is things like empathy contributing to what you've just mentioned? Like if you're more empathetic, does that also play a big part in building that relationship?
Yeah, so boy, there's lots of unpacking there. So I do talk about EQ and emotional intelligence, and I touched lightly on it. I do my little
Mm.
light finger things here because I don't go into depth, and I give lots of great references, to the Gorman
Yeah,
who came up with EQ, which is a fantastic resource. I cited in here. But the big thing I love about mentioning EQ in here is that we're all a balance.
right.
And I love the concept of emotional intelligence because if you have one thing that's out of balance, you don't have to stop being anything because it's hard to stop being who you are. It's hard to stop a behavior. All you got to do is add a little bit more over there. So it's
Yeah.
about adding to bring things in balance, which I love. And so that's one aspect of that. And one of those things is empathy, our ability to understand others.
Mm.
My chapter that really talks about empathy, I give it a different phraseology, kind of like I do the chapter of inspired. So the chapter is called context
Yes.
because some people can be off put by the word empathy because they misunderstand what it means. And what empathy really is deep, active context,
Yes.
seeing the world through someone else's optic, lens, experiences, generation, ethnicity, orientation. I don't care what it is. It's literally, as Brene Brown puts in one of her great books, I quote this in here too, is it's not just walking in someone else's shoes, it's learning how to take yours off first.
Mm.
And so and I did this all the time when we were doing our behavioral consultations or recruiting a spy.
Right.
Before we told someone how to do something, we said, now listen, I'm going to give you what we would recommend for how to engage with this human being in a very productive, healthy way. But before you actually exercise any of these things, you're going to have to role play. And what I mean by role play this is you're going to try to the best of your ability to live the person's life that you're going to approach for at least 1 week, if not two. Their same schedule, their same stressors, their same tempo of life, and then have someone walk up to you and engage you the way you plan on engaging them and see how that feels. In other words, do a deep dive to get the context or empathy of the person you plan on approaching and making a life decision on.
You've just given me a deeper angle. I do sales training, and we talk about situational fluency, which is all about the other person and understanding their business, understanding their challenges, but doing the role play and really living that is a deeper level. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
stick
So I mean,
that
think
to
about
that.
this when you're doing these sales calls, the person you're going to be engaging, because here's what we did with intelligence officers. I would ask the
Right.
case agent, said, so what time's this guy getting to work in the morning? What's the first thing he does? So for our intelligence officers, they generally got in around 7 o'clock. From 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, they'd sit there and they'd read all the newspapers. They'd read all the tasking coming in from Moscow Center. So they're making their agenda for the day.
Mm,
Then they actually have to go to the United Nations for their fake job. And so from 9 o'clock until around 11 o'clock, they're over at the United Nations attending conference meetings, doing all the things they need to do for their double job they're having.
right.
And then around noontime, they're going out to lunch. Now they're starting to meet with sources to accommodate the requirements that just came in from the higher bosses at headquarters to do that. Now they're trying to weave these two lives together. Then after they go out to their meetings, they're coming back and then they're writing up all the reports at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they have 3 until 7 to write up all the reports. At 7 o'clock, all the reports got to be sent back to Moscow or they're kicked back to them by the bosses. And sometimes they get home at 10 or 11 o'clock at night and they do that 6 days a week. And they have wife, 3 kids. Their kids are failing out of school. The wife is trying to divorce them.
Yep.
Their brother's an alcoholic. So you put all these factors in there. Now walk up to someone and say, do you want to listen to me right now?
It totally changes the whole perspective, right? It puts a entirely different spin on the entire process, and I love it. I think, but that level of understanding is not something that the average person does or does very often, at least. Um,
But we could.
they could, right? They could, for sure. Yes.
So, and Wayne, here's what's beautiful about it. Like you said, it's not what the average person does.
Yeah.
So anyone can be massively successful at life. And success to me is a life filled with good relationships that make us laugh, that give us great joy, right? Because when you have that, everything else flows from there.
Right.
And so, since so few people are doing any aspect of this, and I know because when you become very situational aware to these behaviors, the rare occasion someone's actually doing their best to do it to me, I'm in like heaven.
Yeah.
I'm like, go, brother, go. It's so rare that if you just take, again, this like James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits. This is about going from 0 to 100.
Yep.
Take one of the things we're sharing with you today, make one of those things an aspect of who you are and cascade that over time. You're going to be doing better than 99% of the people out there.
Right.
Because other people are just reacting to the world around them, not thinking about the world around them and how to interact with it. And so that's why it is so easy to do because no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
And then when you see a beautiful person that is actually doing these things or even one little tinge of it, you grab on and hold on tight. That's an alliance, especially. And here's the easiest thing to see that someone that gets it does. When someone takes time to do those 4 keys of communication with you, especially when they're seeking with active curiosity, what's important to you? What's
Mm.
going on in your life? And then out of the blue, in a week or two, you get an email, you get a phone call, you get a text. Hey, Robin, I was thinking of you in our last conversation. I happened to bump into this person today they think might be good for that thing you're working on. If you
Right.
want, I'll do an introduction for you. I'm all in.
Yeah. So
And they
powerful.
do it without an ask.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Those moments are rare and they're great.
They are, right? What I did love about the book and to this point is at the end of each chapter, you give a set of actions that people can,
Right.
it's like a summary, but it's also a set of actions. And, was there a particular hope that you had in putting those there related to that story? Like, Is that
Yeah, I probably overdid it. As I look back at those, each chapter has 10 actions. As I after so when I'm doing the narration for the audiobook, I'm reading each of these 10 again. I said, man, maybe I should have cut it down for about five. So so every chapter has 10 actions at the end that are behaviors that help you reinforce.
yeah,
And every chapter has the 10, and at the end of the book in the chapter mastery, I have four exercises related to each of the chapters.
right,
The intent I wrote this was not to do these things sequentially, not to do them all. This is about discovering what you resonate with, something out of those 10, maybe you like one, practice it.
yeah,
At the end of the book, one of the exercises, they're not sequential. If you like one, take it, grab it, make that your 1 mile an hour change of what you do and practice that every day. When you
mm,
think you got one down, go back and get another one.
yeah,
And so I tried to put as much in there to give people choice. Again, empowerment with choice, thing four. I wanted to give lots of choices because I wanted to be able to hit as many different types of personalities and different comfort levels for people. Because I don't want, because remember, even when people start an exercise routine, that again, from Atomic Habits, if you start out and you say, all right, you haven't exercised at all for the last couple of years. Now I want you to go and hit it hard for an hour a day for the next 5 days. You'll never do it.
yeah,
You'll fail because anytime you have to rely on discipline, discipline will fail.
mm,
You want to rely on, I get to do this every day. And if you pick one of those exercises or one of those key actions that you think this might be enjoyable to try, that's the one you're going to keep repeating. So go through there, pick one that you think, you know what, it's a little bit of a push, but I think I'd enjoy trying that. Give it a
yeah.
try.
I found it really powerful as a form of summary to start with for each chapter, but
Mhm.
also, just as you said, just to put some of the guidance that you introduce into practice. And like you say, it's a reference source for the future. So don't try and do it all. Take it piece by piece and build or stack
Right.
your habit type of thing. So you talk a lot, and the last chapter is about mastery. So maybe as we come towards the end of the conversation, you could wrap up the book in essence with this last chapter. What is it you're trying to get across through the mastery discussion?
I got my goosebumps. I love this chapter. I love this chapter on mastery so much because it's probably the hardest thing I had to overcome. And because mastery requires, like I said earlier, it requires you to fall in love with the process
Yeah.
and not the destination. And that requires patience. It requires humility, because everyone who doesn't want to think they're already a master at something.
Hmm.
But the chapter on mastery talks about true masters never consider themselves masters. True masters are constant, humble learners.
Yeah.
They're confident about what they know, but they're also humble enough to know what they don't know. And so the books that, because there's three books that really inspired this chapter that I absolutely loved. Robert Greene's book on mastery. They talk about the master and apprentice. It's a fantastic read. The other one I absolutely love is basically anything by Ryan Holiday on stoicism and how to problem solve. But on Joshua Medcalf's two books, one is Chop Wood, Carry Water. That's fall in love with the process. And the same thing with the other book he wrote called Pound the Stone. And the whole concept of pound the stone is all about you can swing a pickaxe or a hammer at a stone 1,000 times and you don't think you're making a difference. And all of a sudden, on 1,001 time, the thing cracks right down the middle.
Hmm.
And was it that one shot? No, it was all the reps along the way. And so all these books talk about falling in love with the process, and the process takes time.
Yeah.
And mastery is, there will always be someone better, there'll always be someone behind you. But as my other good friend Alden Mills says, he's a veteran Navy SEAL, and he's a book called right there, Unstoppable Mindset. He talks about this concept that they have in the Navy SEALs called a swim buddy.
Hmm.
And what his swim buddies in life, he always picks people that are better than him at the things he's trying to do, because they will constantly set the bar higher. They'll constantly push you, they constantly encourage you, but it gives you a bar to reach for. At the same time, you're a swim buddy for someone else that you're going to bring along. And so the mastery chapter is all about falling in love with the process,
Right.
getting your reps in, having a concept, an overall concept that you're not a victim
Hmm.
ever. You're not a wound collector. You have a positive aspect, and positive aspect is you just solve problems. The world's not out to get you. The universe is just being what it is. What are you going to do about it? Just take action and have allies, because that's what will move you through it.
Do you think that that's also one of the biggest barriers that the majority of people face is they they expect things to happen too quickly, and they're
Yeah.
not prepared to take the time to build that alliance and build this whole picture that you're explaining.
Yeah, and that's why it was so hard for me. I'm a want it now kind of guy. I'm very impatient, and this mastery requires patience. That's
Yeah.
why those books I mentioned are very good, and that's why this chapter is about that, is realizing that. And that's why reading biographies is also really good. You know, whether Walter Isaacson's one of my favorite authors, you know, whether it's Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Benjamin Franklin, or even, you know, one of my favorite Australian authors is Peter Fitzsimons, you know, because he talks about James Cook and all these other great explorers.
Yeah.
I'm even reading Roald Amundsen right now, the great Norwegian explorer that was the first to the South Pole. I mean, I love all these people because every one of these people that have done all these amazing things that all of us recognize, it didn't go like this.
Yeah.
We're talking years and years and years of patient reps. They would loved what they did every day. They didn't have a destination in sight necessarily, except some of the explorers maybe. But these other people, they just loved the process. And
Right.
so it encouraged me to slow down. It encouraged me to let go of the destination I thought was going to be the all about the greatness of Robin,
Mm.
and just really fall in love with the process. Be more like my Jedi Master John and just make it about everyone else. And just that's the process of creating those unstoppable, unbreakable alliances.
Man, there's so many valuable pieces of insight in the book. Is there anything we haven't covered in the book that's really important for you to for the listeners to know about?
No, I think you did a great job we explored a lot of nooks and crannies in there. The overall theme is go we'll circle right back to, you know, the my greatest acknowledgments in there are, you know, keep it humble, keep it humility, and everything will fall in place. Because if you're facing any problem in life or any challenge in life that basically is creating chaos, the only way you're going to get through it is when you have great people and great healthy relationships in your life. This is a book that will calm the turbulent water around you. There is no doubt, because
Right.
it has for me.
No, it is truly a great read, and I'd encourage all the listeners to go out and grab a copy. Speaking of which, where can they find the book?
It is everywhere, you know, Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, or anything like that. Different countries, I know we're getting more and more every day. Audible. I did the narration for this. I've narrated all my books. This is hands down my best, only because I had a fantastic director. She was on me, so like every 20 minutes I had to stop and redo things. So I did the best I could. Matter of fact, if you're watching this show right now, or even listening, I use exactly the same mic. I'm in exactly the same spot. I was able to do the entire recording from home remotely. So they did a
Wow.
great job with the editing.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
good
You did.
stuff, huh?
Yeah. I was impressed. I have to say, I was sitting there with a little bit of expectation and anticipation, but when you get into the book and you're listening to Robin speaking, it just flows beautifully. I was very impressed. I had
Thanks.
goosebumps.
That's my editor, man. I had a good. I every time someone gives me a beautiful compliment about the book, which I'm extremely grateful for, I just give it. I acknowledge the team.
Right.
I wrote it, yes, but I had my publisher, my team at Ben Bella and Matt Holt Publishing, fantastic. Right down to we picked Podium as our publisher for the audiobook,
Right.
and just Amy Rubinate was my director. Just a phenomenal voice coach and director, and just the whole team that did the graphics, and that we everything was a collaboration beyond belief. And because this was a team, you know, again, it was a great alliance between everyone, and because all of us really just wanted to bring great content to as
Mm.
many people as we could.
Yeah. Well, certainly achieved the goal. Um, where can people
Oh yeah, I'm
follow
sorry, I didn't
you?
answer the question. So my website's the easiest place to get everything. It's robindreeke.com, ROBINDREEKE.com. And most importantly on there, you know, whether you buy the book or not, that's great. But I have my YouTube channels on there. I have lots of behavior videos. I have videos that correspond to most of the chapters of the book on there. If
Yeah.
you're into true crime at all, I am a true crime commentator on a couple podcasts, so there's a lot of true crime on there as well. If you want to watch me apply my behavior skills to the world of crime, and just a lot of other resources on there too, as well as I have a program on there called Self Mastery, which is basically a big book list of things I also recommend. So all things there, as well as reaching out for me if anyone does have a question.
Fantastic. We'll try and put as much as we can in the show notes and make sure everyone can find you. But Robin, great conversation, excellent book. Hopefully it's another 18 months before we come back together. It's been a real pleasure. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Wayne. And also for everyone listening, my last major thing you have to do is Wayne puts an awful lot of time and energy behind what he does for the podcast. He has a lot of amazing guests on here with the only intent to bring value to you. So make sure you hit like, subscribe, and most importantly, pass it on to others so they can benefit from his wisdom as well.
Man, I should employ you as my marketing person. So thank you, thank you for that.
Of
But
course.
all the best, and I hope you enjoy, the success of the book that it deserves.
Thanks. Well, I hope we all do. Thanks. Cheers.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.